helped all of us, help us enjoy family, enjoy the time. And we just thank for this board for keep helping us make the right decisions and just be with us, lead us and guide us. And we thank you for all you do for us.
Thank you. Okay. Y'all, tonight's gonna be a little bit more, not even real items on our agenda. So our agenda really is a little bit more discussion and planning for the future. And we've got an agenda here. Do I have a motion to accept the agenda?
Motion.
Second.
Okay, any other discussion on the agenda? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? None being. We've got the minutes that were given to us tonight from the last meeting. We've just read over them. Does anybody need to read over, does everybody have a chance to read them before the meeting here? Okay. With that said, do you have any changes, corrections of any kind? Not, have a motion to accept the minutes from October 17th.
Make a motion to accept.
Second.
Okay, any other discussion? None being, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? None being, so moved. All right, no public hearings. Old business is basically Crawford County Land Development Resolution status. And Jake, I guess you give us a good discussion tonight on what we wanna look at for the future.
All right, so if you recall, several months ago, a request was sent over to the regional commission to help facilitate taking our existing land use resolution, reviewing it, and then possibly, updating it. The regional commission right now has some vacancies and so forth, so from a staff standpoint, they don't, it's not a project they can take on. They want to help us, they don't have the staff to allocate to it. You know, possibly in the future, you know, once they get staffed up and so forth, and get them to come in and help out. One of the things that I feel like we can start working on and kind of at least painting a picture is twofold. When a applicant comes in and they lay an application on the planning and zoning office's desk, hey, I wanna do this, you know, we have the comp plan that we can refer back to and say, well, you know, does it fit this, does it not fit this? And then we also have the land development resolution that, you know, we've all agreed that, you know, it needs some updates and so forth. Well, a lot of times what a community has done is they've taken their jurisdiction and have identified areas that they would like to see different types of growth go into, as well as, you know, different areas that, you know, they feel like has historical significance, or, you know, say for example in Crawford, you know, the timber industry is real big out here. So, you know, that being said, I think taking a blank map of the county and just looking at it from a future land use standpoint, you know, where would you expect to see commercial growth? Where would you expect to see residential growth, industrial growth, and then also, you know, the areas that, you know, have significant agricultural value and so forth. It's the reason I say start with a blank map. You know, you do have the city right now that you can kind of look at the different zoning that is in the city, but when you take an area that is established like that, you know what you're working with. You know, if somebody came in with a retail operation, you kind of know the area to put it into the city. If somebody came in and said, you know, hey, I want to do a car lot, where would you put a car lot in the city? You know, and I use that for an example, but a future land use map, that should probably be one of the first things we start chipping away at after the first of the year. The second thing is, Crawford has grown significantly over the last 20 years, and there have been lots of changes in tax laws and so forth. And originally, when the zoning was first put in place, residential and agricultural was interlocked. You have a vast majority of the county that is RAG. Are we at a point to where residential and agricultural should be separated? So that you have just a basic residential zoning, and then you also have a basic agricultural zoning. A lot of communities, they have done that, and, you know, agricultural would be, you know, your 20-acre and larger tracts. And you can use some of the conservation programs as guidance that, you know, if it qualifies for, and I don't know them well enough, so don't quote me on Cuba and so forth, but, you know, if Cuba is the standard and it's a 20-acre minimum, then maybe that should be our agricultural minimum. Also, you know, going through, looking at, you know, the manufactured homes and so forth, a belief is that the special exception should go away. Either it's allowed or it's not allowed. I don't think it's fair to, you know, put an applicant in a position of, hey, you gotta come in and sell your project to be able to make it approvable. So when we go through and look at the zoning, you know, where are your different housing options allowed, and what's the standards for them, so that we can kinda get away from, you know, I think some people have come in and done a great job with their presentation. Some people have came in and, you know, they didn't do such a good job. So that part, that's the second part of it, that in conjunction with looking at future land use, let's look at the zoning and see what's still applicable. And, you know, this is discussion, so just, you know, thoughts from staff members.
So your thought is kind of go ahead and start this process from within, knowing that the regional commission may or may not ever get to this project.
Yeah.
So what are some of the most important things to start with? And you're saying just start a map with, here's the county and here's what it is right now, and let's identify areas, whether it's streets or intersections or certain areas that need to be identified as, it's not where you're gonna ever put a house. So is it more for something else?
Well, I think, you know, an example, and I'll use Marshall Mill Road and Highway 42, for example. If you're familiar with that intersection out there, that's probably one of the busiest intersections in the county that's not involved Highway 80 or Highway 341. But as you think about that intersection and the commercial appeal to it, now currently, you know, the east side of the intersection is ag land, and I don't think the Barbers have any plans to relinquish that anytime soon. The Crossroads store has one corner, and the same owner actually owns the opposite corner. You know, so it's just, you know, at what point does he come to the table and say, hey, I would like to put something out there that involves retail? But if there was a map that says, hey, this area right here is kind of designated for commercial development, it would be easier for the planning and zoning board or a commissioner or city council to be able to look at that map and say, well, that was what was identified. Now, on the other side of that, if this was identified as, you know, residential, and, you know, it has historical significance or what have you, it would be much easier for y'all to be able to defend a denial, same thing with the commissioners or city council. When it's in a comp plan, when it's in the land resolution, and you say yes or no, it's easier to validate that. So that's what the land use map would, entail, or be able to provide for.
Currently, the county does not have a map like the city as far as the whole
Well,
county.
Yeah, so the page that I'm on right now, all this color coding is a zoning map that the regional commission, they kinda built it. Now, there's some updating glitches, so when you look through and you see all the different shades and so forth, for whatever reason, especially like this track here, they don't have the zoning to carry over. There's something that's stopping it, and as I'm working with them to go through and identify each track that is not properly shown, but it's the same map that the city is showing up on. It's just the city parcels are actually pulling over, and so when you click on a parcel, it'll give you the parcel number, the current zoning, the size, some other identifiers.
I'm a little confused, I'm sorry, so all this property is owned by someone or something, right?
Mhm.
And you're wanting us to go through and sort of identify areas for maybe, commercial, but can you just go into an area and tell some people we're suddenly making you commercial? Or
So
can we
it-
suddenly decide you're going to be commercial?
Yeah, so we're not changing anything, and, so what we're doing is starting a process. Now, the process will end up, there'll be public hearings and so forth, and it'll be, kinda run through the process before it's adopted. Now, a future land use map is not set in stone. It says that, the community has identified these areas for these purposes. So when an application comes in, nothing gets changed until an application comes in. But once an application is filed, then you can kinda look at the map and say, well, it fits with the goal for development of that area, or, hey, that area really wasn't fit for or designated for that type of use. Maybe you wanna go, and really what it does is it would allow staff the ability to steer the applicants of, hey, look, it's not in the plan for your, gift shop to go in the middle of a neighborhood. Your gift shop is identified to be on that corridor in the middle of town, or, 42 and Marshall Mill Road, not in the, I don't wanna say a dead end street, but, it helps create a vision to, for development.
So currently, the city, is their map been approved by the city, or is it still more in the development stage?
So this right here is current zoning.
Current zoning.
This is live zoning in the community. What I'm recommending is that we take something and, let me see if I can get down here. So, I think I'm the only one that's colorblind in here, right?
Probably.
Okay. So if you notice over here on this legend, they have, the color codes, what they've identified for commercial mixed-use development, high-density residential, industrial, low-density, so forth and so on. Now, if you look, they don't let me get it zoomed back out. They don't have individual parcels identified, they just have areas. And, you know, the common trend here is notice, you know, this apparently, I believe this is the city of Hampton's, Hampton, Georgia. So this is up by the Atlanta Raceway. So you can see this area here is, you know, identified for one type of use. And then you can see the residential areas, the different levels of density that's identified. So,
Can I ask a question before you go any further? I mean, I'm with Dr. Kelly. I'm totally confused. What is the purpose of doing this? I mean, if you have someone who owns land in agriculture, I mean, why are we even talking about putting a store there or whatever else you guys are proposing? And then the other part of that is, you don't even get to make the decisions. You have some other a regional group that makes the actual decision. I don't understand, Jay.
yeah. So, as a property owner, you have a right to apply for whatever use you want to apply for to use that property. Now, currently, if you own a vacant lot and there's not a house on it, but you decide, hey, I wanna build a garage and repair cars there or what have you have the right to go before this board and the Board of Commissioners and seek a rezoning. Now, having a land use map and areas identified as, hey, we want this area to stay residential, or, you know, there are some parts of the county that are more likely to be targets for industrial or commercial or what have you.
I don't wanna change your chain of thought, but you said we. Who's we?
Right.
The
So,
council or the people that own the property?
The
Who's we
community-
that
the
makes
community.
the decision? So the whole community?
yeah, so before anything gets proposed or, you know, it gets adopted as the land use resolution, it goes through the full vetting process. You have public hearings, you get input from the community. So if we get a color-coded map similar to this of Crawford County, it would be a consensus of the community that, you know, this area here is identified for, y'all gonna have to help me out with that.
Industrial.
Alright.
Commercial
What does it
mixed
say?
use.
Commercial mixed use.
Yeah, so this area here is identified for that. So what you're proposing for, because right now, remember, the majority of the county is RAG. So there's no guidance out there that's set in stone to where this board, the Board of Commissioners, or even city council can stick a pin in it and say, hey, that's not our vision for the community.
It's they had one in Cherokee County, or they have one in Cherokee County, and a group of people got together and said, hey, this is how we'd like our county to grow. Well, we want to have this area we think is residential, this would be commercial. We want to put industrial here because of whatever. And then the community came together and they said, yes, we like it, and they update it, I think once every 2 to 3 years or something because of the growth. But the idea is that you have a plan for your community, but somebody can still come in and go, hey, I want to put this industrial thing right here by Robin Trudy's house. And then these guys, if it was on the map, it said it was residential, they could say, hey, the plan that the community's agreed to says we don't want to put industrial by Robin Trudy, but you could put house. And that's what it did in, at least in Cherokee County. Is that what you're talking about?
Basically, I mean, that's a good summary, is that it provides direction so that when people do come to the table and they say, okay, I just bought this 2,000 acres, or, you know, the thing that, when you look at the county as a whole, you know, we know about the development that's in the city and how everything is there, but, you know, if you go out 80 west, you know, all this land out here is vacant. And, you know, so when you don't have nothing to provide guidance on, you know, which way do we go with that? I mean, when you go down here to the south end of the county, and this is it's been a topic of several meetings and stuff, but you have a 4-lane corridor that runs through the county for about 4.5 miles down there. That is almost a direct line to the port. In fact, you've got 4.5 miles of railroad down there. So
Where is that again?
Highway 96.
Going towards Reynolds, going back in towards Fort Valley.
So what do we have as a community, a planning and zoning board, a development authority, or any county entity that is trying to market this down here as, hey, you know, is that an area to put a truck stop? You know, cause I think the question over the last few years has been, you know, how can you generate revenue to offset some of the burden that's being placed on the rooftops? But, you know, if we don't have anything that's in print out there that somebody can look at and say, yeah, well, let me look at that 96 corridor, let me find out who owns that property, and let me make them an offer, and, you know, and then the next thing, you have an application come in, and they say, okay, I wanna look at putting something on that 96 corridor that is currently ag land, but the community has it, you know, identified as a growth area for industrial or commercial or whatever the case may be. Now, I'm using different terminology. Personally, I don't care if it says residential, industrial, or, you know, recreation. You know, just put something on a map so that when somebody comes in, we can say, hey, what you're proposing fits in this area or this area. And, you know, oftentimes that can help somebody as they're looking for opportunities. If that makes sense.
How is that different than what we do right now? I mean,
If, I'm gonna see if I can answer that, 'cause I think I know where we might be going, but part of our job as board members is we're planning and zoning. And zoning is what we do, it's more reactionary to everything that comes in here. Planning really is one thing we're supposed to do, that we start planning out what the future's gonna be based upon the strategic plan and everything else going on. So we actually are supposed to spend part of our time in planning what's gonna be done in the future. And where does this come into, what's it good for? If you were coming in and wanting to buy a tract of land and you didn't know the county, would you wanna buy a piece of land right next to, I hate to use that word, a rock quarry?
Nope.
Or would you rather buy one that you know is gonna stay farmland all the way around you? It's kind of, you look at something and say, well, I got 2 pieces of property I could buy, and one's over here next to where they're gonna have an industrial park, and one's over here where they planned it to be agriculture. I wanna be in the middle of agriculture or forestry. So it's long-term planning for what the county, as Trudy said, what the county should look like, or what the citizens have said it needs to look like. And when you move into the county or wanna change properties, you kinda know what the long-term plans are for your surrounding neighborhoods. So it's long-term planning, if I could really put it in a nutshell. Is that maybe
Clear as
answer?
mud?
well, it's clear as mud, but it doesn't seem to me that it's any different than what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the way I see it. Somebody comes in, they want a piece of land, or they think they're gonna buy a piece of land and they're gonna use it for something other than it's designated for, and you guys make that decision. I don't want it to be that, sounded like in the beginning, that somebody else was gonna make that actual decision as to who was gonna be able to change what piece of property to whatever they wanted it to be.
So
That's wrong.
Yeah, it's definitely a community consensus that you know, it will not be a Jake decision or, you know, a Darren decision or what have you. It will be, you know, this will go through the full process of getting input. And what I'm challenged the P&D board is to, you know, take a blank map, you know, with the roads and stuff, and just, you know, look at the areas in the county. You know, if you need to use Google Maps to see where your populated areas are in established areas, and say, hey, you know, we could see industrial going here, we could see commercial going here, and then, you know, we got the opportunity to start with 7 maps, and then, you know, staff will do some, and then we'll start having some additional, the P&Z meetings, you know, we'll bring them up and start kind of quick, and then once we feel like, hey, we're at a point to where, you know, we start getting public input, then we bring the public in and get, you know, some additional points of view. And, you know, I talked to a zoning administrator the other day in a county north of Atlanta. It took them 5 years to update their plan. So that's where I think our starting point is start with the map, start with the zoning that is relevant. And then, you know, any kind of information that I can research for you, you know, let me know, I can shoot it to you. But I think that's, you know, over the next few months, we kind of chip away at this and just kind of see where we go. And
Question, do we know any other counties similar to us that would want to share in this, that could utilize our efforts along with theirs and share any kind of resources? Or is it really just, the cost really is just time and labor for us to do it in-house versus regional commission doing it, is what you're looking at or
well,
leading to?
I do know if we contracted it out just straight across the board, it'd be about a $60,000 expense. The biggest challenge is you want to have the community involved, so you have to schedule meetings to allow the community to come in and so forth. And sometimes trying to schedule a meeting to where you can get a good attendance, a good cross-representation of the community, you know, it's, you know, right now you got the holidays going on. Right after the holidays, you got ball season picking up, and then as soon as ball season's over with, you got vacations, and then next thing you know, we're right back into the holidays. And, you know, when you factor in trying to do that with another jurisdiction, I just, you know, as much as I enjoy calling to other zoning administrators and say, hey, you know, what's on your radar, what's creating your heartburn this week, and just listening. And, you know, to go back to our conversation earlier, Crawford County really ain't that bad. Even, you know, with everything that's taken place over the last 2 years, I am still a blessed person in the position that I'm in.
I brought up to you the other day when we were talking about this, about having a map where we knew, I mean, this is what you sent us, and I can't tell where the community is, or where the farms are, or where the, you know, the con trees are, or the timberland is, and people who have timber are not as likely to sell, they're gonna keep it. We talked about investors, you know, it would help if we had something where we sort of know what we've got now. I mean, looking at this map, other than Roberta, I don't know where the main people live.
Yeah.
There's a much
You know,
larger map of that.
It,
And it doesn't show a lot extra, but it does show all the roads in a little more detail.
I mean, if we could get, so I can sort of look at it and say, well, this is farm, so, you know, they're probably not gonna sell this land because they're growing trees on it. Just so we've got something to, because otherwise
yeah.
I'd look at this map and say, well, this looks like a good area, just throw that all as the industry, you know, and that's not how we.
So what I would recommend is, you know, looking at Q Public, which is the county's tax assessor's website, And it shows you all the individual parcels, and, you know, you can kinda look and see, you know, different corridors where there's, you know, smaller tracts, and then, you know, you can obviously see the large tracts. Now, this one here, the Minor family, they, you know, they're sitting on that property now. A common trend, this property is only 3 generations away from being sold. So, and that's family property. Some of the eastern side of the county, the larger tracts are, you can get my mouse to do right here. They are family owned, but whenever you get over to the western side, these tracts are more
Investment.
Hyco Plantation LLC. Now, I don't know the owners, I don't know who Hyco is, but, you know, at what point do they say, okay, we've held on to it long enough, let's put it on the market and, you know, sell it, liquidate it, and, you know, take the money and, you know, invest it somewhere else.
Or lease it.
I mean, that's a 2,700 acre tract. Now, that's south of 80. You got here Holland Ware Charitable. Anybody here associated with them?
No.
Okay. That's one of the largest landowners that's in the county. So at the end of their name there, Holland Ware Charitable, makes you think that it's a land trust. Okay, are they just sitting on the land forever, or is this an investment group that, you know, is just waiting till the market's right for them to sell the property?
They're waiting for an offer from China.
My belief, if I say I'm gonna sell property in Crawford County for $7,000 an acre, most people that are in this room, most people that have been in the county, land is in Crawford County for 7,000, that's too high. You have people buying land right now without even looking at the land and paying $10,000 an acre out here. So a concern as your zoning administrator is, you know, when they come in, there's nothing been identified for this area other than ag land. And, you know, from a rezoning standpoint, special exceptions, you know, all those applications, we don't really have anything to put a pin in it and say, nah, that's residential, it's identified as residential.
So to kind of go back to the question is, you've got large tracts of land like that. Those are almost exactly the same size as what the Kia plant and the Hyundai plants have purchased in Social Circle and down near Savannah to build electric cars and cars. They can basically come in and buy 2,000 acres, 22 acres and build a huge car plant right next to any of the neighbors up there. And everybody in those areas are really upset with those car plants being right next to them. So that's kind of what this planning process would be all about.
Yeah. So to go back to your question, as far as knowing what's what in the county, I would just encourage you to take this and just kind of move around, you know, take your paper map. You know, areas that are timber tracts right now, but the Highway 42 north that leads up to Monroe County, if you've traveled that road in the last 2 years, you'll know that 42 in Monroe County has been carved up, that they're building barn dominium after barn dominium after barn dominium along that corridor. So at what point do they come in and start doing a similar thing in Crawford?
2 to 5 years.
That tract right there just sold 1,000 acres.
The only problem I've got with the whole thing, can I talk a minute?
Go ahead, yes.
The only problem I got with it is, we're gonna make this map up, and then it's gonna go to another board that's gonna make the decisions on what's done.
with the input of the community. Well, if you bring up that Crossroads store out there, you got the man that owns a store there, owns a piece of property right across the street from it. Well, who's gonna make the decision of how big of an area they wanna make as a commercial? You know, if you don't have that many people out there to say no, and they gon' then these commissioners are gonna say, well, there's not enough saying no, we're gonna say yes, this whole area is gonna be commercial. Well, that rolls back to the rock quarry.
Absolutely.
You got the rock quarry here, they're gonna make that area commercial. Well,
Yes.
if that area is commercial, how big of an area are they gonna expand it, or are they just gonna pick that area? I don't think it's right for another commission to make the decisions.
So I think to debate that point, but would we rather not do anything, or would we rather pre-plan it ahead of time? Cause what you're saying is, let's don't do anything and let's just see what happens,
Well, my thing
and that's
is
what happens.
having trust in you guys to make the right decisions for the people in this county. That's, my trust goes with you guys. You guys live in the county. This other commissioners don't live in this county.
So what you're saying is that we would make the decisions on the plan, not the Georgia Middle whatever commission. You're
Yeah.
saying that we would make the decisions and then they just need to accept
They
our
need to
decisions because we
approve-
made them.
Approve our decision.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so their input is strictly administrative, you know, note taking, putting everything together, typing everything up and so forth. Currently, it's gonna be Jake and Jake doing all the legwork behind the scenes stuff. So the regional commission would just be, you know, assisting. This board and the board of commissioners are the ones that make the decision, whether it's adopted or
So
not.
they wouldn't have the opportunity to expand that area, it'd
No,
be you
sir.
guys doing that.
And that's the
So
perfect
the way they did
segue.
it before is they just came in and they just took all the notes of what we all in that whole committee agreed to, and we had committee meetings like every other week. We were making recommendations, and we took it kind of page by page, and they'd say, okay, we got all these notes. End of the meeting, they'd go back and retype it all up. Then they'd send it to us before the meeting, we'd read it, say, yep, that's exactly what we wanted, or no, that's not what we agreed to. They did just the administrative of what our community groups wanted them to type up. So yes, they were much more administrative, facilitating it, giving us ideas of what other communities may have done and what they recommend, but it came down to it, it was that committee's input directly.
I think the question too, that throwing it out to you all, is what do we want Crawford County to be? I mean, if you look at Roberta, they think in terms of a small community, little houses, they want little golf carts, they want little shops, they want this tiny little community. And then you've got other people out there, they want farmland and they want it to be a farm community. And then you've got people who want taxes brought in, so they need industry. So what do you want Crawford County to be? I mean, that to me is the first basic question is, if we don't know who we are or what we want to be, this math is nothing. I mean, we've got to decide, do we want to be an agricultural company? Do we want the small community situation? We gotta figure out what we want before we can.
Well, I actually did a survey on the discussion page, the wonderful discussion page, about 2 months ago, and I asked that question. And 500 and something people replied to that, and they all said they wanted Crawford County. They moved to Crawford County knowing they would have to drive to work. That did not bother them. They moved to Crawford County knowing that it was the country life and it was quiet, and that's the way they wanted it to stay. And they also said they enjoyed it being a sleep community. That they didn't want, they wanted to continue to keep what they had the way they had it. Now, they did say that it would be good to do things that brought in stuff, and I know the mayor of Roberta's talked about it, and I've talked about it, doing things that would do things in this community that would make it like having, and I know the mayor's working on something like this already, because he spoke about it the other night, you know, lighting up the park and having stuff in the park to bring the downtown businesses business and money in and revenue. People like that idea because it's something quick that you can do on a Saturday night. The community can come together. People from other towns will come listen to a band that's playing, but then you don't have all this industry that is not what people want here. And
But
like,
if you don't have industry, you don't have the money to support your county.
right, but people said that they didn't mind, I mean, I did the whole survey with several different questions, and people were okay with that. They did not want this to be a community of where people were having all this industry come in and all these businesses that ruined the slow life, you know, and I was specific in the questions that I asked.
Yeah, and that's you know, Mr. Tanner's question is the perfect segue of when we start looking at zoning. So in regards to the Marshall Mill Road and 42 corridor, first of all, it's not just gonna be a commercial, it has to be a specific commercial. So when you think about commercial in a developed residential area, you have to have limitations, you know, a C1, a C2, or a C3. And what type of businesses support that area? You wouldn't want a Walmart, and I'm gonna use that for an example, but you wouldn't want a Walmart in that area. So it would be more of a convenience store, you know, I'll say, you know, would a nail salon fit out there? I mean, is that a need? But you would identify, hey, you know, C1, and then, you know, it goes it goes back to, you know, if this first track right here, if they wanted to go from residential zoning to C1, if that's what's identified, then you can look at that map and say, okay, yeah, you know, it fits with that plan. Or, you know, if they wanted to go to a C3 and do a nightclub out there, well, no, that doesn't fit that area. So in a sense, you could eliminate a lot of the applications just from having that map public, because a lot of people can look at the map and realize, hey, that's not gonna float. Now, would it prevent somebody from coming in and saying, well, I'm looking at buying 1,000 acres and I'm gonna do something that kinda goes against the grain? You know, they still have the right to go before and pitch their project. It's not gonna prevent somebody from coming and asking, but
But
if
how
a-
does it protect us then?
But if
I
a
mean-
board says, nah, you know, hey, that sounds too good to be true, but based on our future land use map, we're gonna say, no, it doesn't fit that area, so we're gonna encourage you to find another place. If you go back and you look at a lot of the, not our meetings, but other planning and zoning meetings, they're constantly telling applicants, hey, kinda go back to the drawing board, redesign your project, then bring it back and present it, you know, in a different format, a different layout, a different scale, whether a smaller scale or what have you. And, you know, I think, you know, and this is my belief, that going forward, this is one thing that will protect our community, having this in writing, on paper, to where, you know, not only applicants, but the community can see it. Because you referenced earlier about, okay, if I'm gonna make a decision and buy a piece of property, and I know what this is identified for, you know, it may make me, you know, rethink my decision or reaffirm my decision to purchase that.
So I'm gonna ask the elephant in the room then, if this was in place, when the quarry stuff come up, how would that have protected the people that live around that area? If this map had been done and the consensus for that area was like, we do not want this, then how would that have protected?
Alright, so,
And don't forget, community involvement, there were more than
Right.
300 people here who said no.
So how does
You know.
doing this, taking the time
alright,
and doing this, how does that help? And
So hypothetically, you have a large tract of land that was there. So more than likely, you know, during these settings and so forth, the planning, that corridor along Highway 80 would have been identified as residential. Same thing along Smith Chapel. When you got to these large tracts of land, there would have been a discussion on, well, what do you see going there? You know, what is that land usable for? And, you know, I would almost be willing to bet that if we was talking about this 2 years ago, everybody in the room would have said timber.
Yep, that's what it is.
Well, that's what it is.
It's a timber
They
tract.
just cleared 200 acres 2 weeks ago.
With the Ichikani sitting right beside it, so it's
Right.
just a,
Now, knowing what we know now, how can we put something in place that says, okay, you're bordered on two sides with residential, and you have the creek and all the wetlands that's on the other side, so how do we set something in place and use verbiage other than agricultural? Because that's what it would have been labeled as, and, you know, the first counter argument would have been, well, you know, our proposal is agricultural.
Well, I have another question. Say we do this, we go through this process and we do all that, but you have these people that Holland Ware and all them that own this property. Do you not think that they're gonna get upset when we go to changing that and saying, now this is what this is? They not, I mean, don't they get grandfathered in for certain things?
So, as I mentioned, no zoning changes. This is just a land use. So somebody could come in, and if the property is zoned residential right now, or agricultural, they would be able to do anything that's allowable in that zone, is if they ask for rezoning. So let's just say we adopt the future land use map, and this right here is, well, I gotta go to a different track now. This area right here is zoned as agricultural. Well, we wanna propose to put a rock quarry there. Well, we move rock quarry over to industrial, it's no longer considered agricultural.
Well, that's true, but what if the community says no? You don't change it then.
Jay,
What-
so is it my understanding that basically this is a map and it's just a blank canvas, so to speak, and we take a look at it and say, hey, we'd like for all the industry to kind of be over here, and we'd like all the residential to stay over here, and we'd like to keep all the farmland over here, but not make any changes. It's just a plan for the future of where we would like to have said groups of whatever. It's not making any changes, it's just saying, hey, in the future, going forward, this is what we would like this area to be, and this is what we would like this area to be. Is that correct?
Yeah, but then you've got somebody coming in and they walk into an industrial and suddenly say, I want a factory here.
Or I want a gymnasium.
Yeah, or I want something here, and can you say, no, we want agriculture? Where's the authority behind saying, we really don't want you, we want this to be something else?
So technically, you're already, I say you, the county, the community is already exercising that authority based on the zoning that is in place now. So a future land use map does not prevent anybody from applying, but the land use map does give the ability to say, hey, here's the vision, what you're proposing fits or doesn't fit with that area.
The other thing we haven't really brought up is a 5-year strategic plan that the county, excuse me, already has.
I agree.
And every 5 years, they're gonna update it, or every 4 years, they're gonna start updating it, so that at the 5th year, you've got a new plan for 5 years. So that may answer part of your question a while ago, Barbara, is that the strategic plan already identifies a lot of things that citizens have said we wanna do in this county.
Yeah, but if you
But it
look,
didn't put it on a map.
But if you looked at this plan and how much has been done, I mean, I think I've seen one thing
There you go.
in the map. I mean, I've gone through and tried to earmark what have we actually done in this plan, and very little has been done on it. And if you look at that plan, you were there, we went once a week and covered different topics, but no citizen showed up.
We were all citizens.
No, well, but, yeah, but I'm talking about Joe
None of
Blow,
us
Joe
showed
Blow
up.
That's
citizen, you know?
So let me-
I think that would be
Not very
different now.
many.
Let me, go ahead.
When you're doing the portion of the public's interest, would it be easier to break it down into districts? Have all of District 1 come, say what they want in their district, have District 2, instead of having everybody compile together and it kind of be a hodgepodge of all over the county, break it down into your district so that District 1 can have what they want in theirs. Might make it a whole lot easier process and get what the community, because your community's who's around you. You know, people in 5 can't say what's going on in 1 because they're nowhere close to each other.
I agree with
And so if you kept it, the people who are in that area get to say what's happening in their area versus people up north get to say what's happening south and vice versa. I think it'd be a lot easier process too.
So for tonight's sake,
Yeah.
obviously I wasn't as prepared to explain it as well as I thought I was. So what I need to do is go back, put my presentation back together so that I can come and present it in a format to where, you know, everybody understands that this is a way of protecting the community. I didn't do a good enough job explaining the intent of it, but I still think the future land use map and the zoning are gonna be our starting point for going through the land development resolution. Now, as far as the comp plan, it's up to be updated, we'll probably start towards the end of next year, so. So if y'all are good, we'll just put a pin in that and pick it up after the first of the year, so. But it's something that, you know, I think will benefit the entire community having that in place.
And Jake, I just wanna extend help, I know that you're down a person with Rachel moving, so if there's anything I can help you do through this process, just let me know. I'll be glad to help.
What happened to Rachel?
So
She's now
Rachel
doing
is the
the-
animal control officer.
You were here last month.
Yeah, she done a lateral
Yeah,
transfer.
she was here last month. I ain't heard nothing about her being
Yeah,
She's a great animal
Yeah,
control
she's doing
officer.
a good job.
a.
Great job.
Yeah, she's doing a good job.
You.
But I'll be glad to help you, Jake, with whatever you need.
Alright, and that's, you know, if I can, under old business, just a brief discussion on, there was some rumors going around about my tenure with the county and so forth. Long story short, y'all ain't getting rid of me, so I'm still here. I plan on being here until the good Lord calls me home. Talking with the commissioners, it was decided that instead of replacing the administrative assistant position, it would be more beneficial to hire a full-time building inspector that allows them to go out, be the boots on the ground, do inspections, code enforcement, and so forth. There's been an ad that was put out in the paper, it's been put on a couple of social media sites. It's a pretty basic ad and so forth, but if you go to the county's website, click on it, it'll give you a list of the duties and responsibilities as well as the requirements to perform the job and so forth. Tomorrow is the cutoff date for the applications, and I believe our office has received 8 applications so far, and I haven't confirmed with the admin office if they've received any as well. I'm very impressed with the number of applications that we've received as well as some of the initial qualifications, because I didn't anticipate having people with master's degree apply for this, but
Wow.
we've had several retired military, you know, that are still physically fit to go out, perform the duties. So, you know, I'm excited, and I'll keep y'all posted on the progress of that. The mistake that I made, I forgot that next week is Thanksgiving week, so it's a short week, so I won't be able to do any interviews, but right after Thanksgiving, we'll jump out there, set up some interviews, and it'll be a committee. I'm gonna send an invite to Mr. Spillers. Not sure if y'all are all aware, but he's actually a general contractor. He deals with inspectors on a pretty frequent basis, so I think he would have some valid questions and insight, through the process. So hopefully I can get him there and we can make a good decision and, you know, by the first of the year, have something in place to at least get the appetizer taken off my plate, so. Alright,
Alright. Okay. Any other questions? Comments? Business?
we got one more topic
Okay, what is that?
up under new business.
Okay, I thought it was, okay.
Yeah, so each one of the planning and zoning commissioners is appointed by either, the board of commissioners or city council. The terms coincide with each, whether it's the mayor's term or each commissioner's term. Well, we just recently had an election where there was 3, positions that were up for election. Mr. Spillers, Mr. Cook, and Mr. Smith now. So in the second meeting in January, the Board of Commissioners will be responsible for either reappointing the 3 positions or appointing new members. So the first question for y'all, Ms. Patton, Mr. Suggs, Mr. Romeo, if y'all are interested in continuing to serve, as soon as they release the packets, I'll email them to you, complete them, drop them back off at admin. Like I said, I don't know if they're gonna talk about it during the first meeting, but I know the goal is to make a decision on the second, Board of Commissioners meeting in January. So, look forward to continuing to work with y'all. I almost wanna say if I stay, y'all have to stay, but.
A question,
Force
so
them.
for the 3 of you guys, which districts do you represent?
So Miss Patton, oh, goodness, I wasn't prepared for that question.
Sorry.
Do you know,
Joe's 2, your district 2.
so they're not
Here we go.
based by
Yeah,
their
that's
district?
what-
Yeah, right here.
I think I'm Justin's.
I was appointed by McCowan. Crystal Patton was by John Thomas,
Which is fine,
and Joe Romeo was appointed by Justin Spillers.
which is.
So do y'all
that
live
mean-
in those districts that you represent?
They swapped it up,
Oh,
so.
swap
I'm
it
in the city
around.
now.
So
So-
who lives in my district out of all of you guys?
What
So
district are
to
you?
I don't
give
know
you
where you
some,
live.
Cook.
What district?
You're
Oh,
second.
your cook,
Right.
that would be Joe.
District 2, so
Okay.
that's
Yeah,
Mr. Suggs.
Joe's,
Yeah.
Joe and I live in District 2.
Well, that's where I'm
So to give you
confused.
So
some
Jackie
his-
McGowan
Right,
represented
2.
us.
okay.
So McCowan is District 2, but I actually live in District 5.
so to give you some history on it,
Yeah.
several years ago, getting participation to fill these boards
Mm-hmm.
was minimal. So even the commissioners, when they would go around and ask people, hey, will you serve on this board or that board? You couldn't get the seats filled, so what they implemented was hey, we will do an advertisement of the positions, and then once all the applications are brought in, I'm not sure exactly how the nomination process goes, but I believe the elected official has the ability to nominate out of that pool, whether it's in their district or not.
Only the 2 from the city must be
the
residents of the
boundaries.
city. Mr. Smith?
Oh no, that's a very good question, because And Trudy, thank you for bringing that up, because I know like right now, District 4,
Mhm.
and please don't take this wrong, I'm not trying to beat roadkill, but I think that a lot of things that have happened in the last couple of years wouldn't have happened in the last couple of years if we would have had one person per district. That's my own personal put, and I do think that on what you were touching base on, I think that the preference should go to the person in that district first. And then, if there's no one in that district, then it should go to someone whose district is adjoining that, touching that, so that there is, it's not on the other side of the county. And that's what I wanna stress. And also, in line with that, when is that gonna, is that posted in the paper?
Yeah, so
And
once
when- And what is the time frame on that?
yeah, so I won't be able to tell you the timeframe, cause I don't know what's gonna be in the ad, but, I wanna say Miss Sanders said that she would have it out the 1st of December, and the goal is to make the appointment by the second meeting in January.
How long, will it run in only one issue of the paper? Okay.
Yeah,
And as far as the cutoff time, you don't know if it's gonna be a 1 week to apply for it, or 2 weeks, or whatever it is. Okay.
normally they do a standard 2 weeks.
Who runs it in the paper? You said somebody was gonna do it?
Miss Sanders.
Sharon,
Yeah.
okay, sorry, I heard
So
Henderson.
people should look for that in the first week of December paper.
So my encouragement, if I was an elected commissioner and I knew that, you know, one of my
I'm already doing
responsibilities,
that.
I mean, and
Thank you, but I do appreciate that, okay?
And that's where I think, you know, sometimes, and I don't mean this disrespectful to any elected official, because they're all, you know,
Friends.
well, relatives, in-laws, outlaws.
Yeah, exactly.
The point being is that, you know, sometimes your obligations just get overwhelming, and it's
Correct.
hard to fulfill all of them. So, you know, when you think about a board appointment, you know, maybe it's a priority, maybe it's not a priority, but you know, no disrespect to any board members, you know, whether it's development authority, tax assessors, planning and zoning, I would like to see a list of qualifications. I think, you know, from a community standpoint, you know, if you wanna serve, there's a spot for you to serve based on your skill set. And, you know, some people are talented for the rec department, some people are talented for a development authority, some people are, you know, skill set for a planning and zoning. It just depends on what their background is.
And the same thing applies for the development authority, as you were mentioning, because, there will be some appointments on that, correct?
I would, you know, if I was in any position of authority, you'd be on one of our health boards. I don't know which one, maybe all of them.
I'm starting December 5th, as it turns out.
Are you?
I,
I have to go to the meeting.
If I could add that, cause I've been here a long time, and I will say this, I have tried diligently to help the other commissioners find people to replace me, frankly. And
Have they found
they get
anybody?
down to the end of the door and they just say, Darren, I can't find anybody, so I mean,
Oh, no, and
so I'm the last
seriously.
guy that.
No, seriously, because as Jake stated, that was one thing that I was looking at.
Yeah.
Immediately, and that is personnel, and as Jake highlighted, that are qualified, that are gonna move the county forward, and whether it be, bringing in industry, or bringing in business, whatever, but it's also, the follow-on on supporting those businesses, et cetera, because one thing that, as Pam was talking about, in the survey that she did out there, I was privy to when I was knocking on doors and loved the lady to death. Well, Mr. Smith, you don't understand. We don't want anything to change. I said, okay. And there's a lot of old money here. Yes, ma'am. And we had a great discussion. I said, well, how do you feel about taxes? Well, what are you talking about? I said, we don't bring in industry and all. I said, taxes are oh no, I don't want taxes to go up. And then jumped on about the school taxes and everything else. And I said, well, if we don't do, in other words, if we don't do A, then we don't have this. And it was like, oh, and the like, and I'm not saying it degradingly, but it was regimented, but once you explained, then it was like, oops. So, you know, but that's one thing that we have to do is what direction are we going? So, but anyway, Jake, thanks for mentioning that because, yeah.
If I could kinda elaborate, but one of the things that the new commissioner gets inundated with in the beginning of the year is, I don't know how many appointments, but you're gonna have to come up with quite a few positions. You may know that number, but there's a lot of appointments you've got to replace, whether it's D and Z, Development Authority, the Health Board, all these different boards, you've gotta find volunteers from your district, hopefully.
Well,
And you're
that-
probably not gonna find them all, and you're
No.
gonna find yourself having to either reappoint or maybe get two people to swap boards or something if you want something new in there, but it's difficult.
And I do not disagree and I welcome that challenge. But no, I know exactly. I've been knocking on some doors and calling some folks and sitting down with some folks.
Yeah.
Go through there. But I thank y'all.
I'd like to say one more thing. I know.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
I don't think we should make any long-term radical decisions between now and the new board is appointed. I mean, I just think that's fair to,
We're not gonna have any more meetings this year.
sounds wonderful. Thank you, thank you, Lord. More prayers answered, I love it.
So we're not having one in December?
No.
That is a wonderful gift,
Yes,
thank
it
you.
is.
Thank you, thank you.
I'll just say one thing though, and this, Mr. Smith, as you look through this thing,
No, it's
if
not.
there's one good thing that came out of this rock quarry, is there's more people involved come into board meetings, committee meetings, than I have seen in 15 years.
Yeah.
So that may be a major negative to our community, but there's something they did, something great has come out of that.
No, and I
More
totally
people watching
agree.
on
No.
Facebook and meetings and involved than ever before.
No,
That is true,
I-
but
I agree with
look
you on
who's
that.
here. It's the same 6, 8, 10
How many people are
knuckleheads
on
that
Facebook
we
right
go
now
through
that
this every
watch?
time.
But there's something else too that I welcome, and there's something that this gentleman right here stated. You.
I knew it.
I know, but seriously, Sal mentioned that, you know, I should have been involved a long time ago. Well, he mentioned that, I appreciate him saying that. I should have been involved a long time ago, but sometimes when it's kinda smooth, you don't. But then all of a sudden, you know, when you feel like, oh, by the way, then, yeah, but either you're the solution to the problem or the problem. And when
Well,
we got
We all did the same
solutions, and I
thing.
think
Yeah.
that the group that's coming on board, I think if we can work towards common goal, we can move the county forwards.
Well, I think the biggest thing too in this is not just the rock quarry, but social media. It's the
Oh.
way to go for everything today. And as much as people hate the discussion page,
It sucks.
it is a catalyst to get information out there.
And it is, but I would also tell everybody this, please take what's out there, not with a grain of salt, but with the salt flats. From the standpoint that seriously, there's a lot of people that sit behind their computers and they bark out there, and once again, they're not trying to find solutions to problems, but they're trying to create problems to solutions. And I look at the page every once in a while and then I bite a silver bullet because I don't wanna interject what I'd really like to tell them. So I have to not, so.
And I would like to make one thing clear. If you hear any rumor, any gossip, or anything that makes you say, what? That pertains to me or to the P and Z office, please call me.
Jake, we hear something different every single day. I
I
mean, you
will-
won't be able to get anything done with all the stupid stories that come
I
across this
will-
community.
I will give you my word, because that's the only thing I got, that I will be honest with you. And if there's something that's out there, I'll let you know. If there's nothing, I heard a rumor the other day about a position that's being advertised right now and that it was created for a person to go into. Let me be clear when I say this. The whole thing that kept me with the county was the county offered a solution to help take some of the stuff off my plate. Why would it be considered to fill that position with somebody who may not be able to go out and do the job and,
We all
you
heard
know,
that story.
create more work for me?
Hey, now, I
That's-
haven't heard that story, I wanna hear it.
Yeah, the story out there was that, they're creating this position for McCowan, so he'd have something to do and he could keep his insurance and this, that, and the other thing. That was the story.
And Jake also knows that, I went up there, but Jake also knows that if I've got a question or a comment, you know I'm gonna be up there. you know that fact.
I can assure you that my job requires me to go by a set of rules, and I will stay by those rules regardless of, you know, my personal feelings for them. And, you know, that sometimes has frayed some friendships that, you know, it is what it is, but if you hear anything, call me. I will tell you yes or no, that's true or not true. I have nothing to hide, so.
You have to respect the position the person's in, you may not respect the person.
That being said, if I don't see y'all before Thursday, happy Thanksgiving to each and every one of you. I'm probably not gonna see you before Christmas, so Merry Christmas to you.
Happy New Year.
There is a community luncheon that's being held out at the conference center, that if you know somebody who may not have a place to go on Thanksgiving Day, there will be a full Thanksgiving meal provided for those that need it, and it's free. So
Nice.
emphasize free.
I'll put that on the discussion page.
Melissa Hollis had put out a flyer, so I told her, everybody I see, I will tell that, hey,
Nice.
so,
I'd also add to that whenever they have, I think it's Miss Chester, whatever
Miss
out
Chester.
there on the food bank. Whenever you know people that are in dire straits right now, and there are some people, the word's getting out, please tell those people. And if they don't have a way to get there, if you get their information, their name, address, etc., you can fill out the paperwork, you can get a food box for them, and you can take it to them. So if you do see people that are hurting, please, I'd ask people to do that.
I make the motion to adjourn.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Is anyone in argument with that?
No.
None being, we are adjourned.
So long.